Hello there, you're watching All 24 News special program and breaking news tonight. Explosions erupted in several neighborhoods across Tehran early Friday following confirmed airstrikes by Zionist occupation aimed at suspected nuclear and military sites. Iranian TV shows smoke rising from Tehran. Iranian state media confirms killing of Revolutionary Guards Chief Hossein Salami in a strike. The same source added that children were also among those killed in the Israeli attack on a residential area in Tehran. And now we're joined live by Mr. Hamoud Salhi, Dean Professor at California University.
Hello, Islam. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us, Mr. Hamoud Salhi. So, with the Zionist occupation now moving to direct confrontation with Iran by killing the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps chief, fears of regional escalation are growing. Are we witnessing the early stages of a broader regional conflict? And what role might international mediators play in de-escalating the situation?
I think all boils down to the Iranian response. What we have seen so far and what we know of the Iranian leadership is that it tends to be very pragmatic, practical, and it tends to take its time. The other thing, what we're witnessing and hearing, what's happening in the Jewish states, that there is what you call panic. There are concerns that the retaliation of Iran will be very big. That sort of create a deterrent or a response, a psychological response that Iranians might take into account. But I expect the situation to escalate. And it will not differ from what we've seen before. For one obvious reason, the Iranians understand very well that the goal of Israel is to get Iran into an all-out war, which the Israelis have declared, because this is clearly an attack without provocation from the Iranians, despite the fact that they claim that this is in self-defense. And the Secretary of State, the American Secretary of State, who is also the National Security Advisor in a temporary role, his statement clearly states that this was for self-defense, it's unilateral, all of that stuff. But the point is we are at a very, very delicate situation, and the Iranians have now the means and opportunity and the decision to do what they think will best serve their national interest.
So, Iranian state TV reports that children were among those killed in the Zionist strike on a residential area in Tehran, the capital. How might the reported civilian casualties, including children, those children, reshape international reaction to occupying Israel's actions under international law?
I think, Salim, Islam, what we know of the international community at this point, a big lesson is what's happening in Gaza. That there is so much rhetoric, that there is so much talk, but Israel has been getting with murder. How many United Nations General Assembly decisions condemning Israel? The latest is the European Union. Some of the European countries come in to threaten, and some taken actions or symbolic actions. One wonder during this climate where Israel seems to dictate its genocidal policies, activities, and getting away with murder, whether a call by the international community or condemnation of the international community will be effective. What is really very interesting about what we're seeing is that when we look at how the American media is reporting this event, it is clearly a one-sided, unconditional support for the Israeli Israelis. The media is presenting this as attacks on nuclear facilities, while in reality, as you point clearly, Islam, these are civilian buildings that children are being a casualty. It's part of the propaganda game that we are seeing, and Israel has proved to be sort of good at it, particularly with the silence that we've seen it from the international community. And again, if we go back to seeing how the international community is approaching or has approached or looked at the tragedies, the genocide that's happening in Gaza, and nothing has done to Israel. So a cry by the international community, a condemnation by the international community today of Israel may not be as effective as one would have hoped. Action is what needed. And what I understand, the Iranians are planning on calling, or we may see in next hours or so, maybe tomorrow, United Nations Security Council meeting to go over this latest Israeli adventure or attack on Iran's national sovereignty.
Mm-hmm. I'll be back to you shortly, Mr. Hamoud Salhi. Now, the Zionist entity has declared a state of emergency, warning citizens to brace for potential retaliatory missile or drone strikes from Iran. Schools were ordered to close amid heightened alert levels and sirens blaring. Mr. Hamoud Salhi, as the US and Zionist media signaled imminent strikes, Iranian officials had warned of devastating consequences for any attack on their territory. At the moment, the attack happened on Iran. So what will be the scale of Tehran's retaliation?
We don't know, and this is very, very important, in part because of the casualties civilian. The Iranians media has reported, official media has reported that some personalities, high officials were killed. And some of the nuclear facilities or areas and nuclear facilities in Isfahan might have been attacked. Mm-hmm. So this is a huge fear for the Iranians. And what we hear from the Iranians, and they are always true to their...
Especially with the assassination of the Revolutionary Guard Corps, Hassan Salami.
So that is sort of...
It's a major blow, I guess.
A major blow, a major event that the Iranians will consider retaliating. But I think, again, Iranians are very, very pragmatic. They are strategic, and they know how to address the Iranian, Israeli threat. And they have been successful at it. What they are creating at this point is this deterrent, creating panic in the Israelis. And that's perhaps could be a way for them to have the Israelis go this. But what is important to notice is that when the Israelis are talking about all this and making the Iranian threat as a huge, and it's also a way of them to justify this illegitimate act against a sovereign state. So it is a way of diverting the attention from the act of aggression that they did against a national sovereignty state without any provocation, and establish certain ground for giving legitimacy or legitimacy for their actions. Mark Rubio, the Secretary of State of the U.S., bought into that idea that they described this attack as in self-defense. Even the fact that there has been no attack by the Iranians since Trump took to power, and it's been the other way around. But it is to catch the attention, to dictate a narrative that would support the Israelis' aggression and divert the attention from the world condemnation. Just a very, very important point, Islam, the context of all of this. Remember, just days ago, we were talking about the European Union Union getting together, contemplating sanctions against the Israelis. Days ago, you have a movement, particularly in the Arab world, where we are sort of becoming very cautious and taking steps to block the sanctions against Gaza. The international community, Security Council met with 14 people under the initiative of Algeria that support the stop of genocide in Gaza. So Israel is under a big attack or under a big threat by the international community. There is a move to condemn Israel for this action, for what's happening to Gaza. So this attacks, what the United States is doing is all directed to undermine the international community and the response how people are in solidarity with what's happening in Palestine. So it's another factor that we need to take. Israel doesn't do these things just for the sake of doing them. They time these things, and the timing of this event, for this attack, is clearly associated with what's happening in Gaza and the atrocities, the genocide, the hunger, the condemnation of the international organization of what's happening. All of this affect Israel because Israel is very concerned about the public relations, the isolation that might get from the world community. So they do this with the idea of continuing blaming the Iranians and justifying their actions by being the victim, not the culprit.
Thank you, Mr. Hamid Saleh. I'll go back to you in a bit. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Thursday the United States was not involved in Israel's strikes against Iran, while also urging Tehran not to target U.S. interests or personnel in the region. Mr. Hamid Saleh, speaking of the United States, Secretary of State Marco Rubio stressed that occupying Israel acted unilaterally and without American support or involvement. How is Washington's attempt to distance itself from the strikes likely to be perceived by Tehran and the wider international community?
So it's very basic Islam. The United States telling us, they are not involved in Gaza, right? But who is helping, who is making this war continue? What is the American support provided to the Israelis? What role the United States is playing in Gaza? It's the same thing. It's the semantic, no more and no less. So the idea of whether Israel took unilateral actions without the support of the United States really doesn't matter. The second thing,
Mr. Hamid Saleh, another question could be raised at this point. Donald Trump also anticipated this strike, if you agree with me.
Oh, yes. And he made it clear that Iran should stop its nuclear program. And that's one thing, one of the scenarios could be that the Americans approved. In fact, the latest conversation that Trump had was on Monday, so days ago. And it's highly likely that that's the issue of attack on Iran was discussed. The evacuation of Americans and civilian and personnel from areas that were sort of close to Iran or in embassies closer to Iran is another indication.
Mr. Hamid Saleh, excuse me for interrupting you. I mean, are you saying that Israel's strikes needed the United States approval?
Of course.
But the question is, Marco Rubio said, occupying Israel acted unilaterally.
That's, you have to take the semantic, the rhetoric, the diplomacy, and the idea that you're projecting to the entire world. It is not politically correct or diplomatically correct and in the best interest of the United States to come and say we are fully with Israel and attack against Iran, particularly at a time when they are negotiating with Iran. They are supposed to meet on Sunday for a 6th round, and particularly after a visit that President President Donald Trump made to the Gulf region and presented himself as someone who is interested in investing in the Middle East and so on and so forth. So it will be misleading to accept the United States position and claim or argue that Israel can act on its own. And Israel has to have the American approval. What we're saying, what the United States is telling Netanyahu, we are not going to present our position publicly. We are going to say you did this unilaterally, but we are going to provide you with a cover. And the cover is telling the Iranians, look, it's in the best interest to cut your program as to agree with the United States. That is semantic more than anything else. So from my perspective, Israel has proven time and time again that it cannot act without the blessing of the United States.
Mm-hmm. So at this moment, Mr. Hamoud Salehi, Donald Trump has already said that he prefers peace over war with Iran. Are we seeing, let's say, a proxy war here? I mean, the Zionist occupation has struck the heart of Iran.
I think just a sort of a sidebar point, which maybe help us understand the Trump position. Mm-hmm. Up to last week veto, there was an impression in the international community or among Middle Eastern experts and the people that actually Trump was willing or is willing to come up with a solution to the Gaza genocide and stop the war, and that he was unhappy. But when 14 countries of the Security Council says to Israel and vote again to stop the war and provide humanitarian assistance, and the United States is the only state to veto it, that is a true indication that the policy that we've seen in Gaza are the same as those previously. The same applies to the United States position on Iran. What surprised me somehow is that when you read, for example, some of the literature that came out about how Trump behaved in his first term, there is, for example, in the book The War that was published by famous journalist for Washington Post. In the book, it clearly stated that Trump wanted negotiation, but people around him wanted to provoke Iran and engage in a war to continue this threat. What we've seen in this time around is that there is a desire, there were attempts at negotiations, but negotiating with the Iranians, signing and making sort of deals with the Palestinian resistance or making deals with the Houthis in Yemen proved to be minor issues, minor change policies when it comes to providing security, arms, and everything to Israel. Another case, look at the position that the United States took against South Africa. The United States sided with Israel by sanctioning judges of the International Criminal Court. All of these are indications that that the policy, that the United States policy has changed little. The facade, the narrative has not changed, I should say. The narrative is the same. And today, when you watch the Western press, including from the Great Britain, the culprit here is Iran. We sort of sanctioning this attack against a national sovereign state based on its right to build its own program. And another point, we just this week also we find out that the Israelis were getting intelligence from the director of the Atomic Energy organization. This is the organization that declared, that says Iran is enriching its uranium, only to find out that they were spying, or that the director has connections with the Israelis. He was providing intelligence to the Israelis, and we've seen that during the attack on Iraq previously, when the Iraqi program was under sort of supervision by the Atomic Energy. So the point is that this is not new, and to expect the United States to do less and go against Israel is sort of, so far what we've seen from this administration, we're far, far away from that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Hamoud Salhi, for sharing these insights. We'll continue our discussion shortly. Brent crude prices now to the economic front. Brent crude prices surged on Friday over 2% following Israel's attack on Tehran. The strikes mark a significant escalation between Israel and Iran and pose serious questions about regional stability and continuity of supply. Mr. Hamoud Salhi, speaking of economy, Brent crude prices jumped over 2% on Friday, reflecting market fears after occupying Israel's strikes on Tehran. So how is this escalation likely to affect global oil markets and energy security in the coming days?
It most likely increase the oil prices. It will affect the oil prices indeed. And this is, again, against another background, is that when we hear some of the administrative position that they want stability in the region, they want stability, people to invest in the economy, all of this kind of actions defies those words or those positions. So it's expected in case like this, the oil prices as a commodity to increase.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Hamoud Salhi, for sharing these insights and for joining us tonight. You joined us live from California.
You're welcome, Islam. Good luck.
Mm-hmm. And that brings us to the end of our news program for tonight. Good night.